Bubba Ho-Tep is a movie about a geriatric Elvis Presley teaming up with a black man who thinks he's assassinated President John F. Kennedy, and might actually be, in order to take down an ancient Egyptian mummy that's terrorizing a retirement home by sucking the souls out of people's buttholes. Good movie. So if you've not heard of this film before and you just listen to that base level synopsis and assume that I'm taking things out of context or exaggerating parts, I don't know what to tell you. That is an accurate summation of this movie's plot. Bruce Campbell plays the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. At least the film seems to want you to believe he's Elvis Presley. I suppose you could technically argue it's ambiguous and there's a debate to be made as to whether he's just an old man who believes these ridiculous stories, but for me, I definitely think that this character is supposed to be Elvis Presley, and for the sake of quick, easy plot context, let's just assume that he is. Living in a rundown retirement home in East Texas where the orderlies know him as Sebastian Haff because he claims during the peak of his fame in the 1970s, he, the real Elvis, in order to step out of the spotlight, secretly traded places with an Elvis impersonator known as Sebastian Haff, who would then go on to die of a drug overdose, making everyone think the real Elvis was dead, and, as an added inconvenience, an explosion at a barbecue allegedly burned up the contract the two had written to prove that they had traded places, leaving Sebastian Haff dead and the world mourning Elvis, who was now living as Sebastian Haff, and no one believed. Man, that was a hard one to explain. Anyway, after a hip gyrating accident puts our Elvis in a coma, he can no longer take care of himself when he wakes, and thus ends up in the retirement home we now see him in, spending much of his days contemplating his loss of fame, his lack of love life, his slow lonely demise, his increasing fragility, and his impotence. Yes, I did say impotence there. There is a significant amount of time in this movie designated to talking specifically about Elvis Presley's old man dick. I assure you this is a good movie. With the rest of the residents growing increasingly senile or dropping like flies around him, and the staff thinking he's nothing more than a grumpy old man with delusions of grandeur, Mr. Presley's only friend is a black man named Jack, who claims to be John F. Kennedy. And if you're wondering about the extremely obvious discrepancy in that claim, don't worry, he has an explanation for that.
Jack, no offense, but President Kennedy was a white man.
That's how clever they are. They dyed me this color.
So that clears that up. These guys kind of just live their lives, barely existing through the days and just basically waiting for the time on their clocks to run out until a mystery falls into their laps. There's something weird happening in this retirement home. Hieroglyphs on the walls, attacks from scarabs in the night, and a body count that's a little high, even for a place full of the old and dying. The two find out that this retirement home is the target of an ancient Egyptian mummy, who, for some reason, is dressed as a cowboy. I don't know. And he's going round sucking up the souls of various residents, often through their buttholes, because... well, just because. So it's up to Elvis and Jack to save themselves and the other residents from this ancient evil. Now, in case this isn't already immediately obvious, this is a mad weird movie. But it's one that revels in its weirdness and creates a campy, cult, joyously good time. And everyone involved in the film seems to know exactly what they're going for. Bruce Campbell, for example, is such a high point here that were the rest of the movie completely terrible, it would be worth watching just for him. Thankfully, that's not the case, but still, what a performance. Often known for his quirky, unconventional characters and nerd appeal more than any huge major mainstream successes, so much so that even his own autobiography came with the title Confessions of a B-Movie Actor, here Campbell really gets to flex his acting skills and prove that he's more than just Ash from the Evil Dead and the Spider-Man cameo guy, because his take on an elderly Elvis is nothing short of inspired. The voice, the mannerisms, the delivery, the movement, it's just a fully realised take on an American icon, drowning in the cynicism and sadness of growing old and lonely. It helps that the dialogue written for him is great, but Bruce here, through his performance, elevates already excellent writing to a whole new level. An honestly flawless portrayal. Of course, that's not all the movie has going for it. Somewhere in amongst all the black JFKs and the butt-sucking Egyptian mummies is a great tale on the trials and tribulations of age, of being forgotten and passed over in a world that values youth, of growing lonely and losing meaning in your life, and the strength of a friendship that can help you find it again. It's become something of a nitpicking cliche that in a lot of horror movies the audience often find themselves asking the question, why is nobody getting help? Why is nobody calling the cops? And while I'm not personally a fan of this line of questioning for a variety of reasons, I do find Bubba Ho-Tep's answer to that question pretty interesting thematically. Why would they ask for help from anyone? Who's gonna believe two old guys anyway? I mean, hell, in an early scene, an orderly patronises and gaslights Elvis when he's reporting a bug problem, questioning if he saw a bug, or did he just dream it? So what are the odds they're going to believe them about an evil cowboy mummy? Also, my god, the mummy is cool. What an incredibly well realised design. Easily one of the most fun looking creatures in horror for me. I adore the first time you get a full reveal of him, with the spectacle of the flashing lights and the ominous silhouette slowly walking forward until you see his rotted flesh and dirty stripped back bandages. It's awesome stuff, just great. Also, how thematically fitting to have the rarely utilised mummy as the monster, a creature synonymous with its age and slow movement. It's the perfect antagonist for our retired heroes, as it's a threat really only to the weakest members of society, which is a group the protagonists neatly fall into. It's great to see a plot so focused on elderly voices. Granted, the actors are significantly younger than the characters they are playing and are aged up with makeup, but narratively at least, this is a perspective we rarely hear from, and it's one that adds new and interesting dynamics to the monster in the house style of horror movie. This is a fairly profound and pensive film for something that's so well inherently daft. And of course, there's a nice touching friendship at the centre of the narrative that helps both the protagonists find new meaning and motivations within their lives. Because of course there is. Because every film I talk about is really about friendship. Because I'm a basic bitch who loves friendship stories. So yeah, if you can get past the inherent weirdness and the occasional gross out moments of things like the mummy sucking souls through buttholes or Elvis having long rambling monologues about his old man penis, then I highly recommend giving Bubba Ho-Tep a go. It's a great movie with a unique point of view that has a lot more interesting things to say than just Elvis isn't dead because he's fighting mummies in retirement homes. Also, I really like the ending. I just think it's really lovely. Anyway, hope you're all enjoying this little week of weird. Join me tomorrow for another oddball horror movie, and remember to hit that subscribe red button below to subscribe to my OnlyDance so you don't miss it. See you then.